Hey y'all, my name is Angelica if you've never seen my videos before, and I have my husband Chris with me. And I asked a few days ago on a RV group forum what are some questions that people have about living in an RV full time, since we do stationary RV living full time. And we may not have all the exact precise answers, but I did some research on a few things and felt like I would share this video with you guys. So the first thing that I had a question about was holding tanks and issues. So for those of you that are watching that may not have an RV but are looking into one, obviously the holding tanks are going to be your gray water tanks, your black water tanks, and
freshwater at times.
yeah. And so sometimes what we've noticed is, like, if you keep up with maintenance and you empty your tanks frequently, you're not really going to have any issues. But we have noticed that there's been like some sediment and
Debris.
debris and like sludge buildup. And as long as you're like flushing that out, that's fine. Like with your black tank, usually you have something to flush that out, and that usually is pretty helpful.
If you don't have a trailer that actually has a flush port, what you'll actually have to do is they make a wand. It's probably 3 to 6 foot wand that you hook onto your garden hose and shove down in your toilet, and make sure to stay on top of that. Make sure that doesn't build up too much.
Yeah, because if it builds up, like, you have your little stocking, because hold on, just
broke it.
No, I didn't break it. It's just the internet is stupid. Can you okay. It does better without Wi-Fi.
It just costs more.
No, and that's another thing I'll talk about. But like on the gauges, it'll give you a false reading and basically say, oh, it's like 3/4 full, when in reality you probably just drained it, but it's just saying that because of the sludge built up on the side of it and what have you. Like our black tank, we've never even messed around with looking at the gauge, because it's always been wrong since we bought it. But sometimes you can get algae or mold. We personally haven't dealt with that yet, but I know that you can get those issues. But
That's most if you're running fresh water. If you're boondocking, more often than not, we're hooked up to city water here. We have our filters and our purifiers, so we don't typically have an issue with that, as long as you're filtered. But if you do hold it for a while, algae, especially in warmer climates, that warmth can kind of help your friends grow a little too much.
So just make sure you're keeping up with maintenance. You're not going to have issues. We probably empty our tanks, like our black water tank, every 3 days or so.
If that, maybe.
Yeah, it depends on how often we're using the bathroom and stuff, but it's usually pretty simple, and a lot of people think of it as a lot more work than it really is, but honestly it isn't. And I would prefer to use that toilet over a regular toilet, honestly, because you're saving water and it just works out a lot better. And then the regular gray tanks, we've actually been leaving the tank open, which
For some time now.
Yeah, which some people don't recommend doing at all, but we haven't had any issues with that either. Alright, so moving on from holding tank issues, another question was about 12 volt and any issues you can have with that. So I'll have you talk about this because you have all the information about it better, but basically your battery is going to be your main thing to do the 12 volt off of, and as long as your battery is in good condition, you're not really going to have issues. But if you want to talk about that, and then how frequently, if you have a motorhome or a coach, do you need to be starting that so that the battery doesn't run out or whatever, all the inverter stuff. And if you want to use your little drawing that you did.
So basically the way ours is set up, we have the 30 amp service that comes in from city power. It's 120 volt. That comes in, it goes to our inverter, which then changes it to 12 volt DC, and it charges our batteries. And then from there, I think the only things in our camper that are powered off that is all our lights, and then our furnace as well, which is really nice. If the power goes out, we still have the ability to heat our house. However, If you're not constantly hooked up, or if you're running a motorhome that you know only start it every now and again, just a little piece of advice: it's better to use a trickle charger than a, you know, say start up your motorhome and use your alternator to power it. Reason being is alternator isn't really designed to charge a battery from zero all the time, and what you'll get is, because your battery is drifting down in cranking amps, you know, as it dies, basically your alternator will have to put out way more amperage for an extended amount of time, and then your battery, after, you know, dying, you charge it up, die, charge it up. That cycling can definitely mess up your battery. So it's better if you can, you know, get a cheap 2 amp or 5 amp charger. Just the slower you charge it, the more power your battery can actually hold, and the longer it'll actually last if you just keep it at a more steady voltage.
You said you can also get a generator for that as well, so that it takes the load off of your alternator.
You can get a small generator. This will obviously cost you gas or diesel, but it's better to not depend on your alternator, because, you know, at that point, when you load that up enough, that's when you start running into issues. When you go for a long road trip, all of a sudden you start seeing systems fail, is because that alternator isn't able to take it anymore, because it's been abused trying to make such a amount of power for so long.
So one of my friends on here just asked if we find that we have a better quality of life with living in an RV. Honestly, I don't really notice a difference as far as the living situation goes. I was terrified of it for a minute because I was like, oh, I'm scared it's going to be too small and I'm going to be claustrophobic. Honestly, I hardly ever notice that I'm in a small place, and if I ever do feel like I'm trapped, I just walk outside, or I open my door, or I go run errands or something. But I think things would be a little bit easier if we had our own property and actually had a place to actually put it, because right now we are actually living at an RV park, and I'll talk a little bit more about that too. But living at an RV park, we're paying $5.90 a month plus utilities, which is our electric mostly, but they give us water and stuff like that. And I think if we didn't have to pay, we usually pay like $6.60 a month, which isn't terrible, and it's definitely better than paying $12.50 a month for an apartment that we were living in Colorado. But at the same time, if we could have our payments down even lower, that'd be great, because the actual trailer payment is only $160 a month and our insurance $80. So if we could be paying like $300 to $400 a month instead of, you know, $660 plus the $160 plus the $80, then that would be fantastic. But other than that, I don't really notice anything different. Sometimes there's a few things that are a little frustrating, but we'll talk about that as well a little bit later on. But overall, I feel like it's been good.
Yeah, I mean, I would say you're not so much losing living space as your living quarters just become more efficient. Mm-hmm. You know, instead of walking from your, say, the bedroom to the kitchen, you still
wake
walk
up in the kitchen.
Yeah, you wake up, you walk from the bedroom to the kitchen, but it's a much shorter distance. You don't have this big hallway that's wasted space. You don't have a bunch of closets that are full of stuff. You know, it definitely simplifies life, and life can be easier that way.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I've noticed even when it comes to like going clothes shopping, which I'm not a huge shopper, but if I ever want to go clothes shopping, my RV pretty much tells me, no, you can't do that because you're not going to have enough room. So it kind of, there was someone else that did something where they're like, I know if I buy clothes that I need to get rid of 2 sets of clothes. So, you know, that's a good philosophy to have. You're welcome.
It makes you keep the things that you do love, because otherwise you will not have room for, you know, clutter that you don't really care about.
Yeah, exactly. Alrighty, so picking the right RV for your needs, I had someone ask me that. Now, this is all dependent on your own preference. There is a blog that I found called The Fit RV, FIT-RV, and it has a great 8-step program for deciding you know, what kind of RV situation you want, because each person's situation is different. for us, when we were looking at an RV, we didn't need anything crazy. We didn't need top of the line, the most brand new thing. You know, we were on a budget, so we couldn't spend $30,000 to $40,000 on an RV. I mean, there's some really nice ones out there, but we got ours for a decent price. And my main thing for me was finding a RV that had a good kitchen size, because I was like, I am not skimping on counter space in a smaller place on top of that. So I found one that had a decent little island and a good enough little kitchen space, and everything else seemed pretty okay with it at the moment. So that was kind of why we chose this one. But
also, one other thing that kind of prompted our choice for this one was ours is a 27-foot bumper pull. I would have liked to opt for a fifth wheel. We'll get into that. But basically, we had already bought a truck. A few years into being married, I got hit in our baby, and we ended up having to get another truck, but it was a 2500. And granted, a 2500 doesn't have as much ability to hold weight, as much towing power, but you know, we were able to suit our living needs to the equipment we already had on hand, which was also nice. You know, we didn't have to go out and buy a new truck to pull it. We didn't have to have somebody else pull our trailer. We were able to make do fairly easily.
yeah, and the price was good for what we were looking at. And we were kind of in a situation, we were living with my aunt at the time from moving from Colorado out to Dallas, and he was having to travel like an hour and a half to get to work early in the morning, and it was like, we need something quickly, and all the apartments out here were just too expensive still, and we knew we wanted to live in an RV. So I just happened to find this on rvtrader.com, and there's a few things that I wish I would have known before, and I'll talk about that at the end of the video. But for the price and at that moment, it just seemed like a good fit for us. So it all depends on you, but if you want to go through all the questions, like a little questionnaire, that blog that I was telling you about, the Fit RV, it goes through that 8-step program of things to consider, you know, what to prioritize, you know, for your needs. Alright, so kind of what he was talking about, what type of truck for each style. So what type of truck would probably work the best. So knowing the loaded weight of your trailer and the gross combined weight rating of your vehicle will kind of help you decide. And then, like he was talking about, you know, our 2500 does a pretty good job, but you know, if you want to talk more about that, I guess.
One thing legally that you have to keep in mind if you're gonna have your truck and trailer is that unless you have a commercial driver's license, you can't exceed 26,000 pounds combined. So your truck and trailer gross vehicle weight, that can't exceed 26,000.
I didn't even know that.
That's kind of hard to do, considering you know, most trailer companies want you to buy their product without having to get licenses and all these permits and fees, so they make it pretty easy. The truck you buy for each application though kind of depends. Like us, we're mostly stationary. The truck can get our trailer from point A to point B. However, we're not moving from, you know, Wyoming down to Florida, down up to Minnesota. You know, we're in one spot. If you travel a lot, it's never a bad idea to go a little heavy on your truck. You know, get something with a higher rating, just due to the fact that that extra weight capacity is going to make it a little more comfortable for long trips. If you don't do that, there's ways around that. Our truck, we have yet to do it, but airbags are a great addition.
Can you explain a little bit what that is? Because when I first hear airbags, I think of like passenger airbags that go off.
Something blown up in your face.
Yeah.
So on an airbag or on a truck
For suspension.
a lot of like semis use airbags, and what it is just an inflatable bladder of air. On our truck, we have leaf springs in the rear, so this would sit between the axle and the frame and just add a little bit of extra pressure between those, so that we can actually bump up our capacity of how much our truck can take. The more pressure, obviously, the more you can put in it. But on the benefit or the plus side of that, if you don't want a stiff ride all the time from having heavy springs in your truck, or overloaded springs, you can always get a lighter weight truck and supplement with airbags for when you do need it. I mean, that's if you're not driving it all the time. I don't recommend airbags for everyday towing your trailer and having an underrated truck.
We got a load leveling hitch for ours, which helped take the weight off the suspension.
That can be a great addition too. That's
probably one of the cheaper options.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. Typically, airbags are going to cost anywhere from $800 to $1,500. If you buy it and install it yourself, if you have to go install it somewhere else, it's going to cost a little bit more. Some systems are really easy. They're automated. You just push a button and your truck is ready to go. A load leveling hitch, again, it is a really good option. I've used them a lot. They can really make the ride a lot easier. But if you have to, you can have somebody set them up. Any trailer store is going to be able to do that for you. The instructions that come with them are pretty self-explanatory, but you do need a few tools, if I remember right. So that's just up to your discretion. But either way is a decent option to go.
Yeah, definitely when it comes to like picking an RV, usually goosenecks are going to be better than just a regular bumper pull. I wish we could have had a gooseneck. But we would have had to scramble to get the actual gooseneck hitch and all the other jazz included. But it just helps take weight off of the suspension for one, and then the area that the actual hitch is located at, it keeps it more stable, so that way whenever you're making turns, it's not wobbling all over the place, it's more stable.
Well, and if you think about where, if you were to go buy a giant concrete brick at a store, if that were a possibility, if you were to take that brick, you're not gonna flip down your tailgate and set it on the tailgate and just keep it there for the entire ride. That's silly. You're gonna break your tailgate. You're gonna put more load on the back of the truck. If you can, you're gonna try to get it as centered in your truck as you can, so that way all that weight is right in the middle, easy to control. And it's kind of the same principle with a fifth wheel. If you're considering and debating if you're gonna go with a big trailer, it's definitely a lot easier to go fifth wheel or gooseneck. They're more stable. Just the way you can actually back them into a space is a little easier. There's just all kinds of, I guess, perks. You can get away with a long bumper pull. I actually have a person I work with. They have a 35-foot bumper pull toy hauler, I believe, and somehow they manage. But it definitely gets a little more difficult when you have a side wind, you have extra stuff in the bed of your truck. Just makes it a little more interesting.
So basically, if you do want a good truck for something, like, you can get away with a what am I trying to say? Like a 1500 or like a smaller truck. But if you can afford it and you do want to upgrade later on, getting a dually is probably going to be your best bet. Yeah.
If you're not stationary at all, if you're just touring the highways for fun and seeing what there is to see, it can be a lot more beneficial if you get a dually. Single rear
rear.
A single rear wheel truck with a good weight rating, like a 3500 or a F350, it's going to be good. But in terms of stability, a dually is basically meant to go in a straight line no matter what comes at it. So if you want to go 80 miles an hour down the highway in a crazy crosswind or a headwind, a dually will make that a little bit easier, just because you have so much wider tires in the rear as opposed to the front. there's a lot of advantage to that, but that's, we have a long bed or a long wheelbase, single rear wheel truck, and we've done okay. So.
Yep. So there's some truck information for you. Another person asked what type of vehicles would I suggest being flat towed. Now, we don't deal with this, but I was looking up some information. So, I mean, you can look it up pretty easy. It took me like 5 seconds to find it, but basically it says non-all-wheel drive vehicles with manual transmissions are better to flat tow. If you have a 4x4, it needs to have a neutral selection for the transfer case. If it is a rear-wheel drive automatic, you must disconnect the drive shaft to prevent any transmission damage. And didn't you say something else earlier about that? Didn't you say if it was four-wheel drive that you could also disconnect the drive shaft or something?
Well,
too?
any part-time four-wheel drive vehicle, which is anything you are going to see these days, they have on the transfer case, they have 2 high, 4 high, and then 4 low, but in between those somewhere they will have a neutral. All you got to do is pop it in that, and basically that disconnects that spinning motion, and it doesn't go through your transfer case into your transmission and engine. That's just putting all that load on the wheel bearings, easy to flat tow. And manual transmissions are better for it. The reason is automatic transmission has a pump that has to circulate oil. The automatics, that's that hydraulic pressure is actually what shifts, what lubricates, and what makes the whole thing work. If your engine isn't running, that isn't happening, so that oil isn't going anywhere. But in a manual, that oil is actually constantly just going around the transmission no matter what, so it's getting lubricated, it's cooling down, much safer and less risky.
Yeah, so that's the information that I would suggest about that. Like I said, we don't really deal with that, but moving on to the next question that I got was how to get mail. So we're stationary. We live at an RV park, so we get our mail up at the front like you would at a regular, it's almost like a post office box, yeah. But it's pretty easy to deal with. They have a little key for us. We go up there and get our mail whenever the heck we want. But for those of you that travel all the time, I didn't even realize this, but Good Sam, they're a pretty well-known, reputable RV company club. Yeah. They have a Good Sam mail service, which is like $9 a month, and I think that's just for basic. You can look at images, forward packages, stuff like that. But what I thought was really cool when I was reading about it was you can access mail online. So they have like a mail center, and then let's say you see a picture of a letter that's from, let's say you just got your taxes or something, but you're not 100% sure of what's in that letter and you want to know. They have a secure area, blah blah blah, where you can request for them to open it up. They'll actually scan it in for you and then email it to you. That way you don't have to have the physical mail delivered to you. Let's say that you're traveling full-time, and you are expecting a package of some sort, and you know that you're going to be stopping. You can look up RV parks in the area and then just have it forwarded to that RV park for packages and things like that, which I thought was pretty neat. So there's that. Like I said, I think the basic is like $9 a month. I'm sure there's probably other little mail services. I saw something else that someone did where they used a family member's physical address and they sent all their mail to them, and then whenever they got to an RV park, they would let their family member know, and then they would send them all their mail. But that just seems a lot more complicated than just using this service, because there were a lot of other perks to it too. But yeah, so another question was licensing and registration. It's pretty simple for us because we're stationary, but I was thinking about if you are on the road and you don't necessarily have a physical address, you can always use, like I just said, a friend or family member's physical address. They won't allow you to use a post office box, but you can use a friend or family's thing, because when we first registered this thing, we knew we weren't going to be living at my aunt's anymore, but we had it registered to her place, and that was pretty simple, honestly. We just, I think she still gets our mail for it, but you know, it was really simple to register it all, and she gave us our mail, and yeah, or you could use that Good Sam thing for your mail, but mostly all you would need it for is just getting your little stickers and stuff, and just kind of proving that you have a place, I guess. I don't know, but that's basically what I would say about that. Washing clothes was another question I got asked about. Since we live at an RV park, we have laundromats here on site that are pretty decent. We do have to pay for it, but it's pretty small and not a big issue. Like today I just did laundry, and I can leave it down there for a little bit longer than past due time and come back here and do whatever, and people don't get upset or weird. If you're on the go, I know they have washer dryer combos that you can put in your RV, but if you don't want to do that, they have like little $70 mini electric washer that you can get off of Amazon. There's other things that are more manual that you don't have to use electricity for. I mean, honestly, if you want to go old school and do the whole wash bin thing, I mean, drying is pretty simple. Just get a line and hang it out. And I know they have other little dryers and stuff like that too. So you can always find options for those. You just might have to spend a little bit more money doing it, or just try to be a little bit more creative. We don't really have to worry about that right now, but, you know, if we ever have to, those are things that I would consider. And then here's one that's kind of long. Where to stay, how to find out places to stay, and good perks of stuff like that. So this one I thought was really cool. I'm going to talk about boondocking first, because I feel like a lot of people do the boondocking. So there are boondocking resources. You can go to freecampgrounds.com, and it includes links to free RV campsite resources and other tips on boondocking. The U.S. Forest Service and Bureau of Land Management will allow boondocking for certain periods of time as well. And then I didn't even know this, but Casino Camper, you can boondock at certain casino parking lots. I know that Walmart will allow boondocking, but only at certain Walmart locations. And so I think that freecampground.com will actually tell you which Walmart locations will allow you to and not. Boondockers Welcome is it's a membership. It's $30 per year. It's less if you host, but basically the way that it works is it's people that are willing to host for you to stay on their property and boondock off their property for a short period of time. And then it's less if you decide that you want to host too. Let's say that you're on the road and you have some property or whatever. If you agree to be a host and let other boondockers come and stay on your property for a minute, you get like a discount or whatever. Harvest Host, this is one I've heard of quite a bit. You can stay at vineyards, farms, orchards, etc. And in return for basically like purchasing wine off of someone, or, you know, fresh produce from the farm or whatever. Basically, I scratch your back, you scratch mine type of thing.
Trade for print.
Yeah, and it's $49 for 1 year as far as that goes. So those are just a few boondocking resources I have found, which is really good to know. And then a few other things. These are things that you have to pay a membership for, most of them at least. If you are over the age of 62 years old, you can do National Parks Senior Service Pass, and that is $20. It's $30 online. But for park visitors over 62, they get free admission to U.S. national parks for a whole year. And then if you want to pay $80, you get a lifetime pass, and then plus 50% discount off of camping, boating, swimming, other activities at certain RV parks and stuff.
Does it count if I feel like I'm 62?
Right. I know, I'm like, man.
Awesome.
U.S. military RV parks are open to those that are active duty, retirees, and their immediate family. So that's something to keep in mind if you're, you know, in the military or, you know, something like that.
Or retired out of it.
Yeah. So does that count for veterans?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if that did, but that's pretty cool to know too. Passport America, it's $44 for a membership for a full year. but you get 50% off rates in RV parks in the United States, Mexico, and Canada. So it's kind of nice to know that you have those options available.
Heck yeah.
Let's see. And then other things that you can look at, I found most of that information off of Trip Savvy, SAVVY.com, that has a lot of information about RV stuff, and Axle Addict, AXLE Addict. They've got some really good recommendations on there. Okay, another thing here. Someone had a question about if they were to do stationary, worrying about the levelers giving out or putting too much pressure on them, specifically hydraulic levelers. We don't have hydraulic levelers. Oh my god.
We have a train though.
Yeah, and we've never had any issues. I mean, we've been stationary in this spot for nearly a year now.
Yeah, we have just the mechanical screw style with the little push button motor. It makes it real easy.
Yeah, I mean, things are gonna pretty much wear out over time, but we haven't had any issues with that.
Yeah, and especially if your RV has an automatic leveling system, those are designed to not overdo it. You know, you're not gonna mess up your levelers just being. You might be on a site that's a little wavy, but those computers in those systems are designed to, you know, make up for that and not overload any one cylinder.
I mean, the good thing with hydraulics is that they're kind of designed for pressure and to be able to adjust to that.
Yeah, and too, actually, like she was saying, the levelers that are designed for RV use, they aren't, you know, a super high pressure like you would see in an industrial application. They're, you know, maybe a couple 100 pounds of force to just give it that little bit of lean. It's not actually powerful enough to lift your trailer, you know, for any long period of time.
Yeah. Another person asked if during really hard winds, you know, if a trailer isn't strapped down, are we gonna roll over or do stuff like that. One day we almost had it was like tornado crazy winds. I was scared because that was the first time I had dealt with it, and I was scared like, oh my god, I'm gonna get blown away. It almost felt like it for a second, but I mean, there was nothing happened. I was just being really dramatic, but I don't think that's going to happen unless you are legitimately in a actual tornado. But
I do think that it helps our location. We're as it sits, our trailer sits this way, and then all the way that way is just a line of trailers. So we're at the very end, and the wind usually comes this way. So we were kind of last in line for all that. Granted, it shook the trailer a little bit, but you know, if you're in a park with a lot of other trailers, unless you're on the very end, you probably won't really notice much.
Yeah. This one is kind of tricky. Accessing TV, computers, and Wi-Fi. So we had a little bit of an issue with this. Luckily, our RV park provides free Wi-Fi, but it's a unprotected network. It's pretty public.
And it's for the entire park.
Yeah, and it's for the entire park. We got like a Wi-Fi extender, but I don't think that does like anything. It might help just like a small amount, but most of the time it hardly does anything. Usually, so the way we do it is we have a laptop, and I can connect to the park Wi-Fi from the laptop, and I will plug an HDMI cable into the laptop, into our TV, and then put it on Netflix or YouTube or, you know, Amazon or Hulu or something like that we want to watch. We just have to be careful since it's a unprotected network, but usually if it's for just small stuff like that, I don't really care, like if I'm watching YouTube, to just leave it on that. But we have a PlayStation that we would normally use for that, and we couldn't do it because it wouldn't connect to that Wi-Fi. I, on my phone, have Xfinity Mobile, and I am able to use that hotspot, and I have unlimited Wi-Fi. Supposedly I have unlimited, but I think if you get to a certain amount, it's like slows down your Wi-Fi a little bit, which I haven't exceeded that. But like today, the RV park Wi-Fi was acting stupid, so I just plugged it into my personal hotspot, and I don't have to worry about really going over or any issues, and it streamed perfectly fine most of the time. Sometimes it's a little slow, but I would recommend if you can get something through your phone service. I know that a lot of other people use hotspots. Wi-Fi extenders are really good. It just is kind of dependent. It's just one of those things we haven't 100% figured out, but we are actually able to use the PlayStation for YouTube and Netflix and stuff like that whenever we have one of our phone hotspots connected, which is really nice. But
trying to think, what were we trying to use from Best Buy?
The Wi-Fi extender?
No, there was a like a chip or a small device. I think it was like an old school mobile hotspot that we were looking to find.
I don't know.
That would maybe receive a phone signal, but nowadays phones are so advanced that's just kind of built in.
Yeah. I mean, that one, it's gonna kind of take some digging, and it's honestly up to you of how much you're willing to spend. I was reading earlier, and they have like satellite things and like internet things you can do, but you have to pay a pretty decent amount for. So the easiest option for us was to just get, change my phone service, and because I did have AT&T, but our data was really stupid, so now with Xfinity Mobile it's a little bit easier, and I have unlimited Wi-Fi data, and I don't have to worry about going over and all that other jazz. Best memberships / RV park clubs. We kind of talked about that a little bit. Another one that I found is Escapees. ESCAPEES.
It's not escapes.
I know. RV club. It's $39.95 for the month, and you get a 15% discount off of RV rates. I know Good Sam has some really good stuff. They're, highly recommended. There's all kinds, really, if you just look into it. But, so, yeah, there's that. And then that's pretty much all the questions that we had people ask us. But I wanted to talk a little bit, I guess, about our personal experience and things to...
Word of advice.
Yeah, word of advice. So I don't know if you want to start, but we've had issues with a few leaks. Whenever we actually went to look at this thing, there were a few things we did not 100% understand. Issues with the breaker, overloading, slide out issues, our propane usage, and then just a few other things. But I kind of talked about this in a video a while back.
Did you talk about the first night we were here? Or second? It was within that first week that we were here, I think.
So you have to make sure that I think even on a brand new RV, you're probably going to have to do this. You may not have to do it immediately, but I would highly suggest getting some silicone stuff. Let me grab it real fast.
Not on the roof.
Silicone.
Yeah. Is it?
There's some. I think it's in that. It might be in there. But if not, look in the junk drawer. Yeah, our junk drawer. But we have had a few issues with a few leaks. But basically what I would recommend is going around every single thing that juts out from your slide outs, from the roof, from anything, and go back around that and reseal it. We use this actually to go around our windows. This is just some clear, flexible sealant.
It's real cheap.
It's pretty cheap. And we literally had to go around all of the outside of the windows, some vents, basically any spot that is not the wall of the RV, you want to make sure is sealed good and tight, because there will be a way for it to find its way through.
Yeah, you'll have headaches down the road for sure.
Yeah, not too long after we got this thing, we actually had water dripping into our bedroom, and we found out that our
sunlight.
Yeah, our sunroof thing was leaking water from around the edges, and it was coming around, and then it was dripping down on my side of the bed. So luckily we were able to get that done pretty much over the weekend, but it was really, really bad storm that night. We had to go and find a tarp and throw it on there, and the lights went out at Walmart when we were getting a tarp. It was like this whole crazy ordeal, so that was very fun.
So word to the wise, Make sure you
and we
seal
used
up.
Flex Seal for that, didn't we?
Yeah, and it didn't hold. Everybody says use Flex Seal, but the other day I actually went out and checked it, and all the spots that I used Flex Seal on, it cracked already. So
you cannot saw a boat in half.
Yeah, it'll float a couple times, I'm sure, but a more permanent fix is probably your best bet. Flex Seal, if you keep going over it, I'm sure it could work, but I like to fix things once, get it done, be done with it, not have to think about it again. But
yeah, we also dealt with, we were having a leak coming out of our kitchen slide out, which was really strange because our slide out was pushed all the way in, the rubber gasket wasn't acting up, it was like there's no water coming in from outside, how is it getting in? And then we actually put this around like the windows and a few little vent spots and anywhere that water could be sitting on top of something, and then the leaking stopped. So I think it might have possibly been coming through the window and going underneath the slide out, but it was just really strange. But we have pretty much gone around every single one of our windows.
The window frames, the doors, the vents, your water heater, your furnace, all of those are vented. You have vent caps on the top for your black tank and gray tanks.
Yeah, and honestly, if we would have done this from the very moment we got it, we probably wouldn't be dealing with some of the issues we're dealing with now. Which leads me to my next point. Whenever we were looking at this thing, which this is a 2013, so I mean it's older, it's still in decent condition. Whenever we actually went to we got it from a dealership, and when we went there, they said that it had suffered from delamination, but they went through it, and
basically they told us, and they showed us, they had removed a bunch of mold and things that were water damaged. They removed pretty much.
Well, I was going to explain what delamination is to those who don't know, because I didn't really understand what delamination was.
Okay.
And I had a RV pro with me, but she did not know exactly what to look for. But basically delamination is whenever water damage occurs to the outside laminate, and then it kind of just gets into the rest of the RV. It just starts spreading, so it gets behind the actual laminate, the stickers and
the
all
vinyl
that.
and the decals.
Yeah, and you can actually visibly see it from outside most of the time. If it starts looking wavy, if you're going to look at an RV and the front of it looks wavy, no, do not run away from it. Run away. You don't want to deal with delamination issues. But yeah, they basically told us, like, we went through, we fixed it, we tore everything out, they replaced the whole bedroom flooring area, blah blah, blah, everything. And
Which they did.
Yeah, and I can't 100% say that the issues that we're dealing with were from their lack of work or from the actual window leaking, but we found out that our slide out that we're actually sitting on right now, where our couch is, it's starting to sag pretty stinking bad. And I think that is because water was leaking through our window down onto our floor and causing it to
soften.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, it's just particle board pretty much, and so it started to break it up, and then every time you put weight on it, you're pretty much putting weight on like a soggy cracker. It's like not the greatest, and something we need to fix, but it's still okay for the time being. But
however, learn from our mistakes. Don't get yourself a delaminated trailer. Most dealerships are at least honest enough that they'll tell you, this has suffered from delamination, or they'll at least tell you some of the trailer's history. But if you're especially coming into it, like we were, you don't want to kind of sour your first experience with that kind of thing, because it is really nice living in this. It just gets a little complicated when things don't go right. So don't vouch for it, even if it's a little cheaper. You might be able to re-roof it or whatever. Unless you're a veteran, I would not suggest going for a trailer suffering from those issues. It's just not worth the headache.
An RV veteran, not just a military veteran.
Yeah, no.
Because I was like, what does that have to do with anything?
Unless you're a pro at this, don't even try it. Which
is another thing, the slide out that we have right now, we had someone come by and quote it, and they said that, granted we could possibly get another quote and see, but they said that it would be like $1,500 to $2,000 to actually replace it all, because we were just thinking, we could just replace the floor ourselves, but the railings that we have on the side of this make it so that the whole entire slide out would need to be taken out and replaced
as a whole,
pretty much, because of the way the railing is.
Basically, the rails underneath, they're not the big heavy rails. They're just a little tack-on aluminum strip that runs along the
they have
runners.
A little zigzag.
They have a zigzag so that motor can push the slide out in and out, but they do actually support the weight of the entire slide out. So if the slide out isn't perfectly square like ours, the floor is sagging a little bit, it's not the exact dimensions it was built to be, those rails can become very problematic. Mm-hmm. If you have any water damage, any sort of flex in the walls that those rails sit on, you will suffer. Granted, it's harder now to kind of stay away from those. I've noticed that a lot of RV companies are kind of sticking with those rails now that we kind of learned that, but
yeah. And honestly, my parents were pretty smart. If you cannot have a slide out, don't get a slide out, because slide outs do have a lot more issues. I mean, if you think about it, it's just hanging out in the open. You're going to have a lot more issues than compared to something that isn't. I mean, you might lose a little bit of room, but
you don't want a moving soggy cracker.
Yeah, exactly. Are you just going to make fun of me now when I said that?
No, it was just cute.
You're cute.
One of the issues that we had at this place, which it wasn't even so much an issue as just, we didn't kind of catch it. When we came here last summer, it was my first Texan summer for a long period of time. And granted, I took some breaking in, but we were running
like 110 at certain points.
Yeah, I had one of those little gel foam mats that go on your dash to hold your phone on, and that just ran down the entire dash. It melted, and that was awesome. But we were running the AC full blast, and then when I would come home, we would turn on the water heater, and basically the combination of that would be too much power.
Yeah, along with the fridge would automatically be running, the microwave would already be on. But yeah, with the fridge and the microwave, if we turn on the AC and then try to do the water heater, there's no way we could do it. So we would have to turn off the AC for like 15 minutes or so.
Which doesn't sound like a lot.
No, but when you're in the sun and in 110 degree weather, it's difficult.
You better be taking a cold shower, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But what we found with that breaker issue was basically our breaker on the post outside. We had our surge protector, we had our wire, we had everything on our side right, but the post had just been used so many times that the breaker had actually started coming off the strips internally. So all it took was, quick call to maintenance. They had us fixed within a day.
It was like 10 minutes.
Yeah,
that.
But just make sure that when you do go to hook up somewhere, make sure that the post is in the ground, sturdy. Make sure that all the breakers, are solid. They're not wiggling and making all kinds of crazy noises.
Yeah. Speaking of which, use a surge protector.
Yeah. We haven't had any issues. We're kind of in a little bit older park. I used to be a somewhat of an electrician, and what we would find all the time is when everybody is using their air conditioners at the same time, it creates a brownout, which is, your normal electric level is supposed to be 120 volts. Well, it'll drop down sometimes to 90 or 80.
What's the difference between a brownout and a blackout?
A blackout is a total shutdown of power. So, like, the lights go out, that's a blackout. But a brownout is like the lights kind of flicker or dim a little bit. It's just, usually it's a pretty momentary thing, but that can actually cause a lot of damage to your computerized components. So say your computer's plugged in and doesn't have a surge protector on it for whatever reason, it could mess up your laptop.
It could be prone to surges from, as Kevin from The Office would say.
You could not be protected. But you got to think a lot of the stuff in your water heater, your furnace, are usually computer controlled. So if you don't have an actual surge protector, those are at risk. And come to think of it, actually, my boss, he has an RV that's only 2 years old, and he's already having to replace the controller boards for the water heater and the furnace. And I asked him if he uses a surge protector, and he kind of laughed at me. But
wasn't ours like $60 too when we got off of
yeah,
Amazon?
I mean, it's cheap insurance. It's totally worth the little bit of money that it's going to cost you.
Yeah, because our electricity has actually gone out quite a bit here, and then especially whenever we didn't realize it would get overloaded. Like even during the winter, because we could actually have the fan on, the big fan, and we could have the heater on and then turn our water heater on, and that was fine. But there were a few times we have just a small itty bitty little space heater that if we had that on, we had the hot water heater on, and then if we tried to microwave something or turn on the coffee maker, it would just go out.
If we said go gadget trailer, it was all over.
Yeah, so you just gotta pay attention. So every time, like even sometimes it'll get cold in the morning and I'll turn on the heater a little bit, and if I need to microwave my oatmeal or something, I just usually turn off the space heater and do that. But it's not too bad if you at least can pay attention and kind of get used to how your trailer works. But
yeah, just those few little steps of insurance. I mean, make sure the breaker is good. Make sure it's a true, our trailer has a 30 amp service. You might have a 50 if you have a bigger RV or motorhome.
But keep in mind, we were talking about this yesterday, that a lot of 50 amp motorhomes or whatever, just because you have 50 amps, you more than likely have two air conditioners, which take up a lot of power. So you might as well almost be getting it the same amount of power that we're getting with a 30 amp.
Yeah, you have just enough to keep your area cool and comfortable, but maybe 20 amps to spare. So you got to keep an eye out. But make sure your breaker, no matter what size it is, make sure it's in good condition. If you have any doubts, call the maintenance at your park. Make sure you get a surge protector no matter what voltage or amperage, sorry. And then just take some time to get used to your trailer, because some are designed to use everything all at once. Some are designed to be really inefficient, and you can only run the AC or something. So
and then we should talk about propane.
Yeah, one of the things that we kind of learned the hard way this winter was most RVs are outfitted with real cheap hoses and valves for like your propane. So like Angelica was saying, we use a space heater most of the time because it's not really that cold,
and we have such a small space that it usually heats up pretty fast,
and we can use the big fan with it and it's comfy. But for really cold mornings, it's nice to just turn the propane on, heat it up in less than 5 minutes. But what we ran into was the actual parts that screw into the propane tank from your trailer. Ours are made out of plastic, and they'd been on there so long I didn't realize, but they had become brittle. So I went to go thread a new propane tank on, and the fitting literally just broke. And if that's the case, how do you get propane? What if it's really cold? You're in a lot of trouble at that point if you don't keep track of it. So if you buy a trailer or you buy an RV, make sure that that's at least in good shape, been replaced in the last little bit. Because the other thing is, if you have old hoses, old fittings, or valves, a lot of the time those will leak, and it gets really frustrating having to run to the store every few days just because it's literally blowing out. I mean, that's literally throwing money away. So make sure that stuff is at least current, hasn't been sitting out in the sun, because it'll get really brittle doing that. Not exposed to weather, preferably.
Can you stop smashing your hands down on the table?
Yeah, sorry. I get really passionate. I gotta just smash something. But no, make sure that when you need it, it's in good shape.
And you're gonna go through it quite a bit. I mean, especially in the winter if you're in a cold area.
Especially if you live with an alligator who's cold-blooded.
I'm always cold. And most of the time I'm pretty good with the little heater. But when you're cooking as well, especially doing oven, like baking, sometimes I want to bake and it's just like, I don't want to use all that freaking propane though, so.
Yeah, that's something you got to think about. Is usually in a RV you have one cooking method, and it's propane. So again, if you aren't taking care of the important systems, you're gonna really miss them when you don't have them.
Yeah. And then the last point is, I just put this in here because I like our trailer, but I do wish the layout was a little bit different. Like I said, we were kind of in a rush to want to get something, and this has definitely been pretty good, and we were still able to live with it. But like sometimes the layout is a little bit odd, like where our couch is, it's looking straight that direction, and then our TV is like right here, so it's like we have to like crane around to look at it. And luckily we have another TV my parents gave us a while back that we can sit in front of the couch, but sometimes it's a little weird just the way that the layout is, but it's not terrible. And then our bedroom, we don't actually have doors. It's not really like a bedroom. It's like a it's got a divider wall, and then it's got like little slide out curtains, so it's not terrible. You know, it'd be nice to have a little bit more of a closed off space, but it's really not bad. But you know, make sure that the layout that you're looking at, you're gonna be truly in love with for a long time, because like I said, we can live with it, but you know, sometimes it's just a little bit like, I wish I could just, you know, look this direction if I really want to, instead of having to sit here at the dinette if I want to watch the TV from there, you know. So
well, and when we started looking into RVs as an option, you know, we went to RV dealerships and we went and checked them all out, and you know, we thought we knew mostly what we wanted, and we did do really good on this one. I mean, for being in it in a year for the first time we've been in something this small, I think we kind of killed it. But
yeah,
you know, now after a year you kind of get, you know, an idea of what you really truly need as well.
I keep sticking. We have leather, like faux leather, and I keep sticking because I'm wearing shorts. Another thing I was going to say about energy, if you're curious, is our energy usually per month is like $70. And it's really, really not bad.
Yeah.
And I mean, I pretty much have the TV on all the time for background noise. I'm here quite a bit. Most of the time I'll usually try to keep the lights out or whatever and just have windows open. But I think most of that probably just comes from using the AC and our little fan, because we usually keep our fan on for circulation and stuff at night.
The water heater.
And then I think the most it ever got was probably like maybe $90 back in summer.
Yeah. But that's AC blaring the entire time.
Yeah, I don't think it ever really got above like a certain amount, but yeah, for constant AC, I think the most we ever spent was like $100 for all of our electricity for a month. So if you're curious about that, because that's something we didn't know, and I mean, that's here living straight up in the heart of Texas, pretty much in the hot summer, and then where we're at, it's right in the middle of the sun. So
the stars at night
are big and bright, deep in the heart of Texas. You can't say that in front of a Texan because you have to finish it.
As a Coloradan, I didn't know that, but it's true.
Is there anything else that you want to say before we wrap it up?
No, I mean, I think we covered most of the issues that we've had. It's mostly been delamination and, you know, not making sure of little bitty things, but, you know, just use common sense. You know, like I said, even the dealership we got this from, they didn't, you know, screw us over or anything. They weren't shady about it. They told us exactly what we were getting into, which was nice. I was a bit ignorant at the time, but we were also in a hurry, and, you know, if you can, just take your time, see what you like. You know, it's hard these days to really go wrong. You know, a lot of RVs are definitely stepping up their game, definitely coming out with more efficient bodies and appliances.
Yeah, and I mean, you gotta think that an RV was intentionally made for pretty much camping and weekend getaways. It wasn't necessarily meant to be lived out of. I mean, the material is pretty, like,
thin stuff.
Yeah, thin stuff. So eventually we'd like to have our own tiny home or a storage container or something, but for now this is pretty good. You know, like I said, if we could save just a little bit of extra money by having our own little property and, you know, cutting down on costs that way, that'd be great. But for the time being, it is what it is, and we'll just have to deal with it how it is. But I mean, overall, I'm pretty happy with it. Our neighbors, I do want to say that if you are going to be stationary or even just traveling, like, people in RV parks are freaking awesome. Our RV park is amazing. I never really have to worry about locking all of our stuff up. I mean,
we do sometimes just because, but I'm paranoid.
Yeah, but most of the time, everything is just pretty easy. Our neighbors are super chill.
Really quiet.
Yeah, they'll have little events up at the front, and they're really sweet, and you know, it's just a real chill atmosphere. I mean, being in Texas definitely helps because people here are pretty chill, but I've heard that a lot of RV parks, people are usually pretty happy, and it's probably because they don't have to be, you know, dealing with the rat race of everything, so, you know.
Yeah, you meet some really nice, interesting people.
Yeah, someone else did ask what I would recommend for whenever they have to feed a lot of people. Just get rid of the people. No, I'm just kidding. just get rid of them.
Problem solved.
Like people with kids, like 4 or 5 kids, which, wow, you're awesome for doing that, but I don't really know what to recommend because it's just us 2 and our cat.
Probably easy meals like what we've been eating, I guess, like rice and chicken.
I usually try to make rice and chicken and just make a big thing of rice and then put it in a container and
beans.
Yeah, beans and stuff. So I don't know, just try to make it a little bit easier on yourself. Meal prep, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, easy foods. Rice is pretty much gonna be a staple if need be, but you can make them in big batches. You can pretty much season it any way. You can make Chinese food, you can make Mexican style, whatever you want.
We've had people stay with us too. We've had my parents stay with us and then some other friends, and it never felt like we were really being encroached on or like any issues. The only time that it did feel like that is the one friends that we had. They brought like a whole entire duffel bag the size of our couch. We had like a mini ironing board and all kinds of stupid crap, and it's like, I don't know why you need that for staying here for 2 nights, but that was the only big issue, was just that. But
that's crazy.
Yeah, but other than
as long as you have reasonable guests, you're fine.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think that's mostly all that I can think of.
Yeah, I think we covered it at the bottom.
Yeah, if you have any other questions, I guess, you know, we're not like pros. I mean, we have been doing this for a year and we're not traveling. Eventually that might be a goal of ours, but you know, if you have any questions about anything else, just let us know. We've had to make a few modifications to a few things around here, and we have a few tips. Like, I have a few organizational tips and stuff like that if you want to know. But I actually want to upload this video to my YouTube channel that I made called The Fox Den. So if you want to check out any YouTube videos, that's just getting started. So if you want to head over there, I'll start uploading more stuff though. But I hope that y'all enjoyed this video. Like I said, let me know if y'all have any questions, and y'all got to see my husband. He doesn't really make appearances that often, but hey. Alright, well, I'm gonna leave y'all alone, and I hope y'all have a great night. Thank you so much for watching. Bye. Are you gonna kiss goodbye to the camera? Alright, bye guys.